All right, all right. So for those of you guys that are here tuning in from the recording, welcome to another session. Wyckoff Sundays, episode 14 now. All right, we're going to review everything that we spoke about last week. And really what went right, what went wrong. Personally, like I said, I had a great week last week. I think majority of people did. Last week we spoke about a lot of great stuff. So we'll definitely go ahead and show that now. So we're going to go ahead and start off with dollar. We're going to go into currency. We're going to go into indices. We're going to go into metals, and we're going to go into crypto and talk about all of these. All right. So let's go ahead and tap in.
Started all the way up until today, and the
So we had, dollar obviously first and foremost, having a distribution from the week before. We managed to catch the shorts down here from this level. Now, as we were getting down below the lows of the distribution, this is where now we wanted to start to pay attention to see if we can get any signs of accumulation. Given that we are in a higher time frame accumulation phase at the moment, we were looking for a potential LPSY to play out from this level, right? To go ahead and see the market maybe start to go long and maybe start to make our way towards new highs here, right? So that's kind of the idea that we had. One of the zones that we marked out was this area here. We could see this institutional candle that printed right there, right? We can obviously see also like the three drive, push that almost makes it look like a Wyckoff accumulation, right? We had lots of liquidity sitting above. We had imbalances to target here. We had liquidity here. We have imbalance to target there. So there's a lot of reason here, I felt like, to look for the buys on top of the fact that the structure is obviously still bullish. The war is still going on, which is obviously going to be, bullish for, dollar, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at,
here, right? We had
so yeah, that was what we were looking at for
in
dollar,
general,
right?
right?
Again, we
If
spoke about all
not,
that.
again, like I had a distribution.
And so, yeah. And so basically, last week, that is exactly what ended up happening, right? So the market opened, I believe, Sunday we were right here, right? So the market opened, went a little bit higher, got above the first set of liquidity. And then we had a really nice pullback back into this level here. We can see again, this is the institutional candle that we were really looking for a price to respect here, higher time frame wise, right? 2 hour time frame wise and stuff like that, 4 hour time frame wise. Just really, really nice, pullback just back into the zone as we were expecting, right? So right now it is kind of looking like an LPSY, but we'll see how it goes. We could get another sweep. But yeah, it is looking pretty good. And again, price pretty much just played out perfectly with what we were thinking for dollar, right? We went all the way back up and filled this imbalance. We do still have liquidity that still hasn't been taken. So we'll see how all of that goes in the coming week. All right. So yeah, pretty much dollar
On
we called out spot on, to be honest. I mean, to the T, literally. We marked up the right zone, right? Again, price literally did not come too far into it. Just a little bit of drawdown there if you just played the zone. But yeah, really, really nice stuff there. Now, from there, we started to go into currencies, right? So to kind of align with that idea. So the first thing that we spoke about was Euro USD. We obviously spoke that this was most likely going to be the target for it. And we did have price go ahead and just barely sweep, through that level, right? So we had this really nice institutional candle that played out there. And so I believe we marked that up here on the call as well, but relative to the US dollar play, right? And obviously we can see to the T that zone got tapped into, right? So the market opened, we gapped down, we pulled right back into that level, and that ended up being the high of the week, for Euro USD, right? So again, very similar to dollar, we're kind of thinking, all right, maybe this can be a bigger time frame distribution, and so we were looking for those sells there to see if we can, match that up, with what we wanted, right? And so it ended up playing out really nicely. It does look pretty good so far. So that was EU, right? We had GU as well that we were kind of talking about too. We spoke about this zone there. I believe, I believe that was the zone we were looking for the trades to come in from. I personally didn't use GU last week. Do want to see what happens after we take these highs, but I don't think I used
with
GU.
GU here, over the next a little bit
Yeah.
recently had again like a that would be really NU.
Oh, I guess with NU, I was looking for one more drive higher. Let's look at what happened with NU. Okay, no, so NU didn't, right? I do remember watching this. So instead of having a drive all the way higher, I believe it was on Monday, we ended up having a sweep of this liquidity here, and there was a really nice setup for potential shorts from this level. We could see all these highs, price sweeps the highs, comes back down, right? This ended up being a nice zone. I did not end up taking NU because I ended up taking USD CAD. I don't even think we spoke about USD CAD actually on the call. We spoke about UJ. We said that we're probably going to be holding these levels, and UJ did hold. Um, did hold that sweep that happened there. So yeah, really, really nice long opportunity last week. Or maybe actually I was saying we were gonna,
To the news, obviously, of the Strait of Hormuz that went into. It's really
yeah.
that.
Oh, USD CAD's
Not
there.
into gold just yet. We're just speaking on currencies for right now. With all of the USD pairs, right? USD chef, again, looking pretty good. With all of the USD pairs, right? USD chef actually can be a really good position as well. We do have market structure looking pretty good, and we have recently gotten below, some pretty good lows. So maybe this pullback here, we're going to look for whenever this is going to be over, right? I think this, has a good chance of not breaking these lows here, right? So I
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there was a long here on USD Chef and stuff. Yeah, I guess we didn't talk about USD CAD much last week, did we? No, we didn't. All right, cool. So then that was that, right? But I ended up taking this trade here. This is the one that I chose for last week. I ended up hitting a 1 to 7 on this position. We did call this out live on our Tuesday live session. I believe it was, right? We took longs right here from this area. You guys can see with the blue arrows. And then, we ended up closing out first here, for around the 1 to 7, and then just closed up the rest after that. Again, perfect timing, right? We did end up getting a pushback down on USC CAD after that. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful position. Again, we were kind of thinking this whole thing here could be manipulation, right? And then we had this smaller time frame sweep there, right? Impulsive phase, mitigation phase, right? We manipulated again. And then we entered this there, for this, right? So this ended up being a type 1 entry model for us last week. So really, really beautiful. All right. Then we had gold, right? So obviously gold is probably the best call out that we've had. We spoke about how these highs here were not exactly giving us signs of strength, right? When we really do look at what the highs are doing, I mean, every single time we were getting, really just fast moves up, push back down, right? Fast moves up above, push back down. So it was basically really failing to create strong higher highs, right? We weren't really seeing price being able to sustain at those levels for gold, right? And so what we had basically said was that most likely scenario was we were going to get a gap down, right? And then we could go ahead and look for a pullback to then go ahead and look for potential sell-offs on gold, right? So here,
and then we just snap right back down, right? Same thing over here, right? When we look at this high sell coming, like if I want to really look at strength, it's not just about there being higher highs, right? Yes, there's higher highs here, but do these higher highs really speak out strength to us, right? Liquidity, well, right? We're literally right buy up that we took last week that every around here or here, so we should be getting below at least 4,600. That's what I.
So yeah, the target there was 4,600. I don't think we quite reached 4,600 just yet. But maybe next week we'll see if that price does continue down. But yeah, so far, I mean, again, really, really nice for gold. Like we had the market go ahead. Like we said, this is when the market was closed that we were looking at it on Sunday. And then market went ahead, gap down. We had a pullback that came back into the gap, right? So we filled in that gap there. We had a nice little redistribution type of play, right? First drive, second drive, third drive. Right in here was pretty smooth to be able to take a trade like a type 3, right? You could have taken it there in the wicks, right? Lots of opportunity there for potential trades. Really just basing off of what we said on Wyckoff Sunday for gold to really go ahead and fall off. And pretty much from there, we ended up seeing gold sell off about 1,600 pips. So yeah, really, really awesome move to take advantage of. For me personally, I did it with silver. So I ended up taking it with silver because I thought the order flow was a little bit better. As you guys can see here, and I also had a type 3 setup. So that's why I really liked silver as an opportunity. So after that, we had this sweep here, right? I took a trade right there, put stops above the sweep. And obviously we saw the market go down, right? So, we had good lower time frame order flow in this area, right? I believe here, like on the 3 minute, right? We had a nice little 3 minute sweep there, right? We had a 3 minute trap candle for mitigation, and then we entered during the third part of manipulation. So really classic type 3 setup that we managed to catch. I personally clocked in about a 1 to 10 on this position. But honestly, we could have actually let this ride for the whole week, and it did end up being the high of the week. And we could have ran for about a 1 to 40, right? So pretty crazy stuff. But I can't really complain with the 1 to 10, can I? But yeah,
I
good
think we
stuff
should be
there. I don't know
getting
if we said that
and start to,
specifically for silver. Let's take a look what we said for
looks like the
silver.
highs on gold got weaker every time. Exactly, right?
So yeah. Oh yeah, we also spoke about the volume. That's very true. Yeah, so the volume here on gold again, right, we really did have the market showing us those clear signs of distribution just from that alone, right? Seeing the big spikes happen, right around here at the beginning of the distribution, right? We see it get weaker and weaker and weaker as time went on. And then we really started to get spikes in volume again as we started to break through different levels. So it is looking pretty good. It is looking pretty interesting right now at the moment, right? We'll see how it goes next week. But yeah, definitely, again, very, very nice call out from last week. Hopefully some of you guys managed to take advantage of that, right? Indices we spoke about, really what I told everybody was I probably wasn't going to trade indices. Most likely, right? There has been a couple of, I guess you could say, bearish order flow here, like this high failing to really sustain. We dropped off. We have a second institutional candle here. We dropped off, and there's been some opportunities, but personally, I just haven't really liked it too much. I think I took a small loss on. I think it was Nasdaq, even though I said I wasn't going to trade indices. Probably should have kept with that. I think this is the loss on Nasdaq here. Yeah. So yeah, that was pretty much the only loss of the week, I think, was with indices. So should have definitely listened to what I said on Wyckoff Sundays there. But yeah, again, just being at all-time highs, just ripping the way that we were, it didn't really make sense to, look for, look for the sells just yet, right? Now there, I guess there's a little bit more, but still it's not even looking that weak. So, that's really the idea, when it comes to this, like this setup here with indices. I just think that, yes, we could go down, but it's just not really, the clearest at the moment. So yeah, not really too like, into the indices right now, to be real, right? Then we spoke about Bitcoin. All right, so Bitcoin, we're pretty much still looking to go bullish, I
700.
believe.
So you're in a little bit of profit right now. We have this high that previously we were see the longest way, right?
I
We
think
could
we
get
wanted
the
to see
upside,
price sweep
what
down.
the nice, but I just don't really like regular, right? We have to look at what happens in
Yeah, okay. I think we were saying this high looks pretty strong because of the way that it did. I don't think we actually broke that high. I think BTC was pretty range bound last week. Oh, actually, yeah, we did right here. Yeah, so we did end up pulling back a little bit further after the market opened, right? Then we ended up making a new high, right? Again, I do still think we're bullish on this. That is what it looks like, to me right now. So yeah, if that's the case, then BTC, might just be slowly grinding its way higher for a while. And then maybe after we pass 80K, we can start to revisit, signs of distribution and stuff like that. But this is pretty much what we have been waiting for with BTC, has been coming up towards about 80K. To be honest, I did flip-flop at one point and say that we might go down, but maybe it's just not time just yet. I think that, again, we probably will revisit 60K at some point, but anyways, we'll talk about that later. So yeah, that's BTC there for last week. We didn't really call out a specific trade, to be honest. And then there was oil, right, which we did mention as well. We were obviously most likely going to get a gap up. We did mention that. And then we also said that, we could look for price to go ahead and fill that gap to then go ahead and continue to the upside, right? So let's go ahead and see that here if I can find it.
starting to get price, to come down into really extreme areas here, right? I personally don't think that we'll break this order flow here, especially after the news. So I do think 76.86 is going to be the bottom back. This push to the downside that happened right here, right? So that push to the downside that happened there, we're already like all the way up here. We'll probably gap up and then hopefully from there fill that gap and maybe
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
we'll probably gap up and then that happened there, we're already like all the way up here. We'll probably gap up and then hopefully from there fill that gap and maybe use that to go ahead and go long, right? I think that could actually be a pretty good opportunity for us.
And so, yeah, that was what we said last week. And so pretty much perfectly as we expected, saw the market gap through up on oil after the Strait of Hormuz was closed again, right? We had a reaccumulation coming right back into the gap. And then that obviously ended up being the bottom of the week. So Wyckoff Sundays there for oil also was really, really clean. So oil, gold, silver, everything was very, very clean, going into the new week. So we'll see what can end up happening, now going forward for this week. But yeah, again, just a golden opportunity there with oil. So really when it came to Wyckoff Sundays episode 13, really, really well done, to be honest. I mean, as obviously as we can see, pretty much the majority of things did end up, going in our favor, for this, right? So it looks like we spoke about GN here. I guess somebody was asking about it. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, so we went towards one side of the, I think that's literally what I said.
To the next point of liquidity that's over there being taken as well, right? So if we go to the downside, we'll probably go straight to the next point of liquidity that's over there to the upside. So we'll see how this ends up going, but not looking too shabby, not looking too shabby.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we said was that most likely we're going to go and attack. If we attack one side of the liquidity, we're probably going to go straight for the other side. Literally exactly what happened. I mean, we could see from here, right? This is on Monday, right? So we ended up getting the market sweeping below, right? Creating an accumulation down here. And then we now have started to make our way to the upside, right? We did definitely reach these highs, but we still haven't finished all of it. So we'll see if we do end up continuing to go higher. Maybe there could be some opportunity here for this week, for another buy up to the upside there. So yeah, we'll see how that one ends up looking for us here in a bit. All right. So there's that. So yeah, I think that's pretty much everything, guys, from last week. So again, if you didn't take advantage of it, you definitely should have. You slept because again, there was really, really good analysis there last week that could have made you guys some really good money. All right. Now, we're gonna go ahead and tap into what we can see happening this week. So obviously, as always, we're going to start off with dollar, right? Now let's go ahead and start here from a daily time frame perspective, right? So now from the daily here, obviously, like we've been saying, there is a good chance of this being an accumulation on dollar that might end up bringing us all the way up eventually to 102. I do think that that is the target at least. The question is just how are we going to do it? How are we going to get there? Where are we going to be able to find our entries to, again, take advantage of it? There obviously last week we did manage to find entries in here. And we also managed to find entries in here after this sweep happened there, right? That institutional candle right there. I believe we took trades in here when price came back into that level and then we traded back out. So this is where we took our USD CAD buy basically was like right in that level, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, most likely, I mean, I obviously would like to see the buying continue. Obviously that being said, this like there is reason to believe that this can be the LPSY that we were looking for, right? So like given that we had our test and now we came right back into the range, this could be the LPSY we're looking for. We could also so the first possibility, I'm going to really give two for this, right? Because obviously it could go either way. The first one is going to be like obviously that this ends up being that bottom. We do have this being a good smaller time frame accumulation, and so maybe we really just get pullbacks into this area here or pullbacks into the deeper area there, right? To go ahead and then go long and head towards this liquidity here. The fact that we still have that liquidity intact and the fact that we still have this gap intact for me tells me like pushes down I'm going to want to buy in general, right? Obviously with risk management and making sure that we are aware that there is multiple possibilities of how this could play out, right? We could go for these gaps this week or we could go for next week or next month, right? We don't really know, but we do know that it is likely that price will long term want to head towards that direction to fill that gap and to take that liquidity that's sitting right underneath the gap, right? So either one, getting pullbacks into the accumulation to then go long, or two, this ends up being like an STM phase B to a UT, right? And then eventually we kind of, consolidate a little bit longer inside of this range. And then boom, we get a spring, right? That we can actually, again, like take the liquidity that was here because I expected this liquidity to get taken and it didn't. So there is still a possibility that this could be an STM phase B and that this can be a UT. And then eventually we end up getting a spring, right? That can definitely still happen. Just because we had a lower time frame accumulation doesn't necessarily mean it's the bottom for sure. It could definitely be that again, like we have an STM phase B, which would also show, fractal signs of accumulation like that. When I do look at the daily isn't, giving too much when it comes to this being a bottom, just because again, there isn't really a daily institutional candle. We just got a really big wick. But the candle that I do like that we got was this trap candle here, right? Trading right back into that level, right? And then we even got the market actually, within this low, trading back into the trap candle, mitigating it before going higher. So order flow is still technically there. If price is gonna, again, follow order flow, then this area here is obviously the next point where we might see price buy from, if we are gonna do that. If not, then again, we might just be getting a little bit lower, right? Tapping into there. And if we consolidate for a while here in this level, then most likely we'll probably get a spring, that will, sweep through here and then give us a long-term buy opportunity, I think from there. If we manage to, again, pull back without reaching above towards these highs, then again, I do like this to continue to long. So definitely something that I would continue to do, this week, if price gave us the opportunity, right? But yeah, as of right now, again, it's like we're in a premium area, right? When it comes to between this high, so this low here and this high, right? So in between this low and this high, we're in a premium area. So we're going to want to see price go ahead and pull back a little further, right? Just give us some discounted pricing. Right. So obviously, if we see a pullback of the bigger time frame zone, then we most likely would be reaching towards these areas here. If we're just holding order flow, then it would be from this low to this low, and then maybe then we get in like a 70% retracement, 78% retracement. Just depends on what really the incentive is if we're, doing this from a bigger time frame perspective or if it's going to be from a smaller time frame perspective. So yeah, just keep in mind those zones and just watch and see which scenario could potentially play out. I think both are very real. Obviously, my preference in terms of like really seeing a bigger time frame move that we can take advantage of would be a spring, right? If we can get a spring, that's going to be an easy buy for me. Once we're getting into these extreme areas down here, for me personally, that's what I'm going to want to see, especially if we have not yet filled the gap and the equal highs there, like I said, right? So that's dollar. All right. Obviously that aligns with the ideas here on EU. So right now, EU traded all the way back down into where we had the buys from last week or 2 weeks ago. And so, like again, we could see price long from here, although I personally don't think so. Again, if we do see a similar idea with dollar, most likely EU will do the same. I think that we should at least get above these relatively equal highs with these wicks here, above 1.1765, right? And going ahead and looking for mitigations from that level. We might even just take all the internal liquidity, to be honest. I feel like that would be the most ideal scenario for us, right? I do definitely see this as big liquidity. This could be liquidity. We just got to see how price plays out when we get closer to those zones to fully know, right? And again, there is still the possibility that if dollar hasn't had a spring yet, and that this is an STM phase B, then maybe Euro USD ends up giving a UTAD, right? A really big buy up to then sell off, later on, right? So maybe like again, I do still think the selling is happening. I do think that we're just waiting for this redistribution to just fully complete. Now there's GU as well, right? GU, if we want to look for like the order flow to hold here, I probably would like GU the most for that specific scenario because GU is already almost above this liquidity, right? To then maybe go ahead and go down. But what I will say is that it would have been a lot better if we didn't sweep this before we started to come up, right? The fact that we did have like a strong sweep with a good institutional candle, that might give more validity to the idea of like a UTAD of us actually making a new high because of the fact that we got the sweep, especially, right? When we look at those lows and like, they have a chance that, there was really manipulation that was happening in there, that typically is a red flag for me. Even if there was manipulation here, if I see this happening and we're coming back into that area, I'd probably favor another one, right? To at least happen and then maybe a drop. So I do feel like maybe the UTAD is what I'm kind of seeing here with the GU example. And I think NU, same thing, right? I think that, most likely us kind of just holding down here, right? Do it for a little bit longer, right? Kind of build up that liquidity. And then from there, right, get a sweep, get a UTAD. And then maybe we can start to head towards this gap that's there to the downside there on NZD USD, right? So there's GU, there's NU, UCAD obviously here as well. I did think UCAD last week was in a really good place. I did like this 4 hour down move that we had here and stuff. I believe the daily was also not bad. Yeah, we had a nice daily down candle there as well. So I actually did like this for a potential long. Actually, I think of anything, if I were to really want to see order flow hold, it would be on UCAD. But yeah, even with UCAD, it's like we could definitely see this up candle here engulfing back down. But if we get tomorrow, like basically today's candle, like that opens later, to go ahead and be a bullish candle, well, then this would technically be a trap candle right there, right? If this next candle were bullish, right, we would technically have that almost be like a trap candle move. So like we're coming down, right, get back into this previous daily candle, do a trap candle mitigation, and then go long. That could definitely be the case for UCAD. So if we're going to see the situation where dollar like holds that low, right, then UCAD will probably be the best one to use, actually. If we're going to see like a UTAD or a spring scenario, then I'm thinking things like NU, GU look a little bit better for stuff like that, to happen, right? But UCAD's not looking bad. Not looking bad, right? Yeah, and then there's UChef. UChef has got relatively equal highs here at the top. So yeah, maybe same idea. Maybe it ends up just sweeping again and maybe holding this, right? So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how these bad boys end up going. But I do think like for example with UJ, lots of liquidity here to the upside. I do think we will eventually be, getting out and like taking all these highs out. Hopefully we can sell off first before that happens, and then we can get a good extreme area, type of play for UJ, right? So that's currency, guys. All right, let's go ahead and tap into metals. So like we said before, metals is kind of looking like it's been in a distribution phase, right? First drive, second drive, right? Third drive, I guess you could say, right? With both, it's almost four. But really, these aren't really too far from each other. I would really look at these both as the UTAD in a way. But yeah, really the idea here just being that, we have had price looking like it's distributing. And if this is the low of our distribution here, then again, this should be what we should reach, right? Which is 45.50, right? Last week we said 4,600, right? So far we have technically held order flow, right? I will mention. So like we do have like again this low obviously that went and created the new high with this push to the downside or whatever, right? It was obviously a big gap. But yeah, this right here, right, did come back into the low that created the high. So could we have buys from here? For sure. Right? There definitely could be the case. I did take buys on Friday last week, from this level because of the way that we had swept through these lows, right? And then we had this low here happen on such low volume, as we could see here, right? This low here, really, really low volume in that low. So we started to see order flow coming up. So that's why I went ahead and followed that position. This was like a reaccumulation type of play from me, right? So yeah, we'll see how it ends up going here with gold, but yeah, potentially pretty low, volume in that low could indicate that it could be a bottom. And there is kind of liquidity to the upside here. I can't even lie. So maybe we do get a short-term push up. But honestly, guys, I would probably prefer to see this order flow break, right? Like if this order flow holds after distributing for so long, it wouldn't really make too much sense to me. So I do think most likely this is just distributing and then, maybe we get a push up, but then I think eventually, we do reach that level. I would love to get something like that. That would be like the most ideal scenario for me would be us maybe coming back into the high of the week last week and then from there mitigating and giving us another push down. But we'll see. We'll see. Do you think the shooting last night will push gold up? Yeah, I did hear about that. Let me actually take a look here. Let's take a look at the weekend prices before we move on. Oh yeah, I was trying to load this and it wasn't working for me earlier. Does anybody know another one where you can look at the weekend gold price? Okay. Um, 50% of client accounts are short. Huh. It's 47.16 right now. Oh, really? Oh, so it's not really gapping anywhere. So yeah, I guess not really too much effect from the shooting. I mean, I don't know. It's probably not, to be honest. I don't think it's the real like narrative of the market right now. I think the real narrative of the market is the war. I don't know if that guy was involved at all with Iran or anything, but I don't think so. I don't know. I assume not. Or maybe like not in an official capacity for sure, probably. Um, but uh, but yeah, I would say like probably not. Probably not. Most likely, right? So. It is tough to say though. It is tough to say. I do wish I could just look at the chart. Okay, no, this is not showing the weekend, so it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. But yeah, if it didn't really affect it on the weekend prices, then most likely not going to be a big narrative, I think, when the market opens, but we'll see. If so, then it'll probably be a buy because this was set up before that all happened. So yeah, honestly, I can't even lie. This does actually look pretty decent to be like an accumulation here for the three drives down. So I will mention that. But again, I just do think that the bigger picture here is most likely distribution with what's happening there, right? Seeing sweeps like this typically indicates to me that order flow will break, even if it's just a temporary break, and then after we go. But like normally when I see things like this, like for me, it's like, okay, we're probably not going to hold order flow. We'll probably come down, sweep, and then continue to go to the upside. Oh, okay. I saw you post that there, Kelsey. So yeah, it looks like it's at 47.15 right now, 47.16. So yeah, it's a little bit higher it went. But yeah, pretty clean, pretty clean stuff. Um, we'll see what ends up happening there, right? So for me, again, like I said, my personal bias is to see gold go lower. Obviously, we're already at a low point, so there's not really much reason to sell here. I'd rather see liquidity get cleared up, and then maybe from there we'll be able to attack more things to the downside. If not, then we'll just wait, right? Yeah, and same thing with silver, right? Silver does have a really nice candle, looks like here on the 1 hour. Let's see, but you don't really see it on the 2 hour and the 4 hours, so fair enough. But it could be something to pay attention to, right? If we did get a sweep up into that level, right? This is technically the high that created the low. So we have both a point of order flow, which is an institutional candle, and we also have a point of structure, which is the high that created the low. So honestly, not bad. Could end up being a play there from that 1 hour candle there on gold. Sorry, on silver. But granted, I don't really like to look at the lower time frames here, like the 1 hour. for the Wyckoff Sundays, right? We do that more when we actually go live in the mornings, right? So yeah, silver, I mean, we'll have to see, right? We'll have to see. But again, I'd rather just see a pullback and then maybe continue to get lower. If I was going to look for one to really hold order flow, I think silver would be the one that I'd want to go for. But you know, we'll see. We'll see how it ends up going there with silver, right? So silver, gold, and stuff like that. Cool. Indices, you know, again, like I said before, you know, really not too interested, right? I do have some order flow marked up here on the 4 hour. You know, could be the case, but I'm not really trying to touch it. I just feel like us being at highs, I don't want to buy, and and I don't typically like to sell indices in general, especially when we have such a bullish move like this, like straight line movement, right? Like why, if we're already going to do all this, why not do a little more just to stop out some short sellers, you know? So, what I'd rather see if I'm really going to want this to happen is going to be like price to, again, like just really start to create, you know, bearish structure, right? Give us a better indication that, you know, we're getting weakness, right? At the moment, it's really not there. Yes, we consolidated here for a while. We have equal lows, all that, blah, blah, blah. But who's to say when we're going to attack those lows? We go all the way up here and then attack those lows. So it's just one of those things where for me, I'd rather see some structure play out first. And then from there, you know, we can go ahead and look to short. And if not, then you know we just let it go. We just let it long. To be honest, I don't really want a long all the way up here, you know, for it. So that's just me, and I don't really have that much belief in it in general from a fundamental perspective. So because of that, I don't really want to buy at high levels, and you know, I also want to be careful with the shorts because I know indices just wants to rip it sometimes, and you got to be careful with it, right? So that's indices in general. I don't really have too much to say about that. And then crypto, right? You know, again, I do think we'll definitely hit 80K this week. And then from there, who knows? Maybe 86, right? Maybe we get back up to these levels here at 90. And then we short off, right? This is the closest redistribution is all the way here, right? You know, relief bounces are very common in crypto. So even if this isn't the bottom, you know, even getting a push up towards those levels is still pretty common. And if not, then again, like I do think that this level down here will be the cleanest for us to potentially buy from down at 57. But the order flow is good to go bullish. The order flow is good to go bullish. I can't lie. So it is looking good for the crypto people, right? My ETH is looking good. So that's nice as well. That is nice as well. Oh, I guess I had this zone here as a potential sell area for a type one that we're actually just tapping into now. Because again, with ETH, I mean, sorry. With ETH, it's a little different. You know, again, because we have you know, this sweep up here, right? Came back down, right? We had really nice liquidity there, and then another sweep here. I mean, technically, this would be like a type one setup, the mitigation of the mitigation. We do have actually liquidity here to the downside, technically as well. Looks like we have a huge volume spike in this high, and we get a much lower one over here. So actually, technically, it is a decent setup here for shorts on ETH. But yeah, no, still looking pretty good. Still looking pretty good. But yeah, guys, that's gonna be pretty much you know, that from me though, right? We'll take a look at oil and then we'll wrap it up. Because that is one that I've been adding to the list lately. And yeah, I mean, you know, again, we're just very bullish, right? Bullish price action. I do think that long term, our goal is to reach 120 again. I do think that that's likely what's going to be happening. I don't think that this crisis is over yet at all, obviously. So I think that it's just going to get worse. So really what I'm thinking is, you know, again, we hold these lows, right? Maybe we can get a sweep getting below here, right? And, you know, order flow is obviously going to be this low here. This is the low that creates the high. If not, then, you know, there's always the possibility of getting an internal sweep and getting really deep into here. But I do think that this right here at 78, 79 is probably the bottom. That's what I think for oil, right? So any pullbacks, treat them as buys, is really what I'd be looking for oil, right? And again, the last point of order flow is going to be right here now at 90. If we break that, then most likely we're reaching here and we can just get into an extreme area and look for a long-term buy for this. So we'll see how it goes, right? We'll see if obviously the news changes this at all. But you know, I do think it's going to be an interesting week, and I hope we just continue really what we were thinking from last week. That's kind of the main thing I'm thinking is like just continuing the same price action from last week is really what I want to see. Now, real quick, we're going to look at the news here. So Monday, nothing crazy, some JPY stuff. Tuesday, some JPY stuff. AUD, USD is finally here. Oh, we have FOMC this week. That's good to know. I always love FOMC, to be honest. Great volatility. You know, with that, right, most likely, to be honest, you know, we'll probably see rates stay the same, to be real. I don't think they'll raise them. I don't think they'll drop them, but we'll see how it goes. Now we have employment cost, core PCE price index. So like, yeah, some inflation data coming in. And then yeah, that's pretty much that. So we'll see how it goes. It looks like Wednesday and Thursday are going to be the main trading days this week, which is nice. So yeah, for me personally, I don't think I'm going to trade Monday or anything. It doesn't look like one of the weeks where I want to trade a Monday. So I'll probably be there back live on Tuesday. And then, that's where we're gonna start our week. So yeah, guys, that's it from me. All right, that is our Wyckoff Sundays episode 14. I don't know if you guys have anything else you want me to look at, but that's pretty much, what I'm thinking and what I'm gonna be looking for the coming week. So yeah, again, good luck to each and every one of you guys. Let's have another killer week. Let's kill it in the markets once again, as always. And just stay safe out there. Stay safe out there on these trading streets, man. Much love, guys. Much appreciation. Peace out. Deuces.